Welcome back. This is the final iteration of the list, at least before the played each deck track, which may incur some additional changes. So if there's another video that occurs afterward where we talk about additional changes, then that'll be because of the played each deck track that has caused us to make some more changes. So I just want to cover the changes since the last video. So we've now hit 100 games of iteration, and I feel pretty confident in the list. The first major change is impact tremors for grape shot. Again, impact tremors uh, was included just because we aren't allowed to run breach freeze in play ADH mid. And so even though brain freeze is more synergistic with the deck in general, and also would have allowed us to have a underworld breach and then win con, using the breach freeze loop. That's not actually allowed in play DH's mid tier. So last time I had put in the impact tremors as a sort of alternative, since usually what we're doing is we're making infinite storm, like infinite creature storm. But then I decided to change that to grape shot because it does the same thing. If you're gonna cast, Cloud of Fairies or any other creature infinitely, then it doesn't really matter. Except the difference is that Grape Shot can actually be played uh, and and used to destroy an opposing creature that is problematic, whereas Impact Tremors has no relevance whatsoever, except for as a win con, and it also kind of makes players come after you if you were to just manually cast Impact Tremors for whatever reason. Players would be like, okay, that's annoying, and that sort of incremental damage is a problem, and so they would target you. And the whole point of Spellslinger is that you want to win using Spellslinger combos and preferably not die to the whole table coming after you with creature damage, especially when you run such a low creature count anyway. So Grape Shot's been put in. Merchant Scroll, I cut for the Archivist of Ogma. Now this one is a little bit controversial. If your meta is very combo heavy, then you probably want to find a way to keep the Merchant Scroll in, because one of the ways to deter people from trying to combo off is to cast Merchant Scroll and then grab some kind of counter spell in hand and just basically tell the table like, yes, I have a counter spell in hand, but, don't even try to go for your combo. Um, the Archivist of Ogma is in there just because in the play age mid and sort of high powered tables in general, you're going to have a lot of opponents that are cracking fetch lands or doing tutoring, and so this card draw becomes a lot more relevant than playing a Merchant Scroll, which is a 1-for-1 tutor, where you play the Merchant Scroll and then you get one card in your deck to basically replace the Merchant Scroll that you cast. Archivist of Ogma will actually net you cards, and also has a little bit of incremental life gain, which may matter, but ultimately netting you cards is a little bit more important in a blind, high-powered meta than simply having this one-for-one tutor here. Now, if you are in a combo-heavy meta, then you may want to keep the Merchant Scroll in there and cut one of the board wipes that are currently in there. The two board wipes being Out of Time and well, three board wipes technically in the deck. There's Out of Time, there's Cyclonic Rift, and then there's Slaughter the Strong. And of these, Slaughter the Strong is the weakest one. And so if you really do need to keep Merchant Scroll on the list, I would cut Slaughter the Strong. And again, that's only if you are in a very combo-centric meta and not a meta that is generically high power. What I mean by generically high power is people playing creature combos and otherwise coming at you in a variety of ways, whether that's Voltron or big creatures going wide, mass tokens, the sort of thing where you want more incidental card draw rather than doing Merchant Scroll to grab a counter spell. Merchant Scroll can also be used to grab Intuition, but if you ever Merchant Scroll for Intuition, you better be winning pretty soon, because anytime someone sees Intuition being tutored for, that's usually a sign that you're about to combo off. And so Merchant Scroll otherwise would have felt awkward and has felt awkward in a good number of my test games in just blind high power. Again, we've reached the 100 games mark, and so this deck has been tested in sort of this blind high powered online meta, and so there's a good number of decks that don't win via combo, and so um, the Merchant Scroll has felt awkward because it's not like I felt like I wanted a Merchant Scroll to grab a counter spell, and I didn't want a Merchant Scroll to grab Intuition because I wasn't ready to combo off yet, or I didn't have enough mana to combo off yet, and so Merchant Scroll oftentimes just felt really awkward there, and oftentimes I just wished I had an Archivist in the deck. But again, if you really need it, you can cut the Slaughter of the Strong in order to run it. Another cut's been Kaikar. Again, Kaikar doesn't really do anything for 4 mana, at least not in this list. It does help you go mana positive, but Burgi kind of does the same thing, and the other reason why to cut Kaikar is because we needed more. I wanted to add a board wipe that can be tutored for from Enlightened Tutor. So we already have uh, 2 board wipes that can be tutored for from a Mystical Tutor, and that is Slaughter the Strong, which is good against metas where opponents are playing big creatures, and then or not out of time, but Cyclonic Rift, which is generically good, but you do need to have 7 mana for it to actually be a board wipe, and it can be countered, and so it's better after there's been some time in the game, whereas you may not necessarily have time in the game against really fast cascade decks or anything that's going to ramp out really fast and go big really quickly. And so I wanted something that would allow you to take on those decks, and is also tutorable off of Enlightened Tutor. For example, if your opening hand has Enlightened Tutor, or you draw an Enlightened Tutor and you don't have any sort of instant or sorcery tutor, then obviously, you can't tutor for Slaughter the Strong, or the Cyclonic Rift. You can only tutor for um, an artifact or enchantment, and having Out of Time in here gives you an option in order to grab Out of Time. And Out of Time also has 1-min games where I have phased out people's commanders, because phasing out is not actually removing them from the game, so they can't command zone. They literally just get phased out, and a lot of times entire strategies from enemy decks just get hosed this way. So really happy with this switch. Other one is Sheevan Reef for Exotic Orchard. The number of times that I have needed double white, or the Sheevan Reef covers 2 out of 3 colors in our deck, but there have been a number of games where I'm like, I really wish the Reef was an Exotic Orchard, just because I need another white pip, or uh, basically it's another white pip in most cases. And in most cases, Exotic Orchard has been able to tap for at least 2 of our colors, and so I felt like, well, it could just be an Exotic Orchard instead of a Sheevan Reef. So I'm pretty happy with that switch. The third cut, or fourth, I should say, fifth cut here, is Tidal Barracuda comes out for Blinkmoth Nexus. And so the same idea is that we need some cards in the deck that provide protection for the turn that we combo off. And Tidal Barracuda did provide that sort of protection. However, it also is a risky card because it enables your opponents to possibly combo off at flash speed, and that's not always good. It's also 4 mana and kind of doesn't do anything the turn it comes down, except make people potentially come after you. And the um, the switch Blinkmoth Nexus, you'll notice, is a lands, and that does 2 purposes. One is I felt like I wanted to go to 33 lands. Some of the games where I had where I was like basically just trying to draw cards in my deck because I need another land, has made me realize that this deck really wants 33, not 32, and it runs a high density of fetch lands to help prevent flood. And then the other thing is, even with Tidal Barracuda, it's a creature that you'd have to play. And so if they are pretty good at wiping the board, or if creatures are constantly getting killed, then something like Blinkmoth Nexus being a land, uh, being able to tap and then just immediately use that floating color list to activate and make it a creature so that you have something to mutate Vadrok onto, has been particularly relevant for me in the games that I've tested. And so I'm really happy with this change here. And so if you're wondering about the land count in the deck, this is your first time seeing the list, Blinkmoth Nexus is there for that edge case where board wipes are being played, and because we're already a Spellslinger deck, we're light on creatures, and so that land kind of gives you an out if you need something to mutate onto. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the list itself. It's very important to understand that there are 2 actual win cons in this deck, and those are Grape Shot and Twin Flame. Any mana neutral creature loop plus Grape Shot is Infinite Storm. If you can generate infinite Vadrok triggers, then you can also, or infinite mana in any way, but but in most cases it's going to have to be infinite Vadrok triggers, then you want to be able to use Twin Flame. You don't actually need either of these win cons in your hand. Ideally, both those win cons are in your deck by the time you start comboing off, and that's because the more important part here is the winning dig combo. So you need to know these actual win cons because they're actually how you kill your opponents when you do win these winning dig combos. But the actual combos that you're playing for in the game are these dig combos here, and it's important for you to become familiar with them pretty strongly because each of these dig combos is essentially going to dig through your entire deck and generate infinite mana and infinite loop, or like infinite storm, basically. Um, and with infinite mana and infinite storm, you are going to, and infinite draw, you are going to hit your win cons. And so instead, the deck is focused more on these, and these are the actual win cons, whereas these are the ones that you're technically playing for during the game. So first one is Vadrok and Chef's Kiss. This one needs some explaining because Chef's Kiss, um, when you read it, it sounds like it, it does say literally on the card of Chef's Kiss that the new targets can't be you or permanent you control. However, the reason why the Vadrok and Chef's Kiss combo works, which you can look up on EDH Rec and Spellbook, the reason why this works is because Chef's Kiss has a gatherer gatherer line that says if there are no legal targets that could be selected, then the targets remain unchanged. And so the reason why this loop works at all is because the mutate mechanic has to be on a non-human creature you control. And so Chef's Kiss is going to try to switch it to a new target and try to switch it to a permanent that you don't control. However, because mutate has to be on a non-human creature that you do control, Chef's Kiss will fail to find a new target. And because of the Gatherer says if there are no legal targets that could be selected, the targets remain unchanged. That is what enables this loop to go infinite. And so that is that loop. This line is the main one because throughout the game you're going to be casting stuff like Jessica's Will, Frantic Search, possibly Wheeling. Technically, Faithless Looting is not in the deck anymore. I'll remove it after this. But you're going to be casting some of these spells anyway. And so your graveyard's already going to have one of these spells, most likely. And so then all you have to do is find Chef's Kiss, make sure you have 7 mana available, 4 of which is red, 1 of which is white or blue, have a non-human creature in play, and then you can do this combo. And ideally you do it with protection, so if you actually follow the game plan here in terms of how to play the deck, what you're trying to do is mulligan. This tells you what hands are keepable. Again, like most decks, you want to play for card advantage and to dig through your deck. And then some of these are good to play just because they either help you go mana neutral or mana positive. And then in order to actually combo off, you usually want some kind of protection piece in play. So there are, in addition to the counter spells, there are 5 protection pieces in play. So before you try to do one of these winning dig combos, either put a protection piece into play or just have a bunch of counter spells in hand and the mana to use them. Or if your opponents are just running low on cards in hand, you can probably just blind go for one of these combos even without protection. Second dig combo here is going to be Smothering Tithe in play. Then you cast Underworld Breach, and then you cast a Wheel. And then the Wheel is going to fuel the graveyard, and so you can keep casting the Wheel from Underworld Breach. And then Smothering Tithe is going to make like somewhere around 21 treasures each time. And so that will eventually dig through your whole deck, generate an absurd amount of mana, and then once you've like put your whole deck into the graveyard and have ridiculous amounts of mana, it's not too difficult to win after that. Third loop here is Cloud of Fairies plus Vadrok plus Snap plus Twin Flame or Jessica's Will. And this is a 4-card combo that wins just because it basically casts Cloud of Fairies, mutates Vadrok onto it, and then snaps it back, and then you make a copy, or rather, you make a copy of the Cloud of Fairies with the Vadrok mutate onto it, and you just repeat each time. And there, even though this is 4 cards and it does seem like a lot, there is a way to grab 2 of those 4 cards through Spellseeker. but I'll cover that in a bit. Last combo is the Fairy, Displacer Kitten, and Sol Ring. This one is another one that's pretty strong because you're gonna cast Sol Ring anyway if you have it. Displacer Kitten is very good because even without Teferi, it combos or at least allows you to do some cool non-winning combo lines with other non-land permits that you have. And then Teferi is really strong here in that what it does is it has built-in protection with its passive effect. And then this be able to cast Teferi um, when you already have these two, which again you'd play anyway even without the combo, is just really really strong. Um, One thing I will say about Teferi is you usually don't just want to blind cast Teferi for any reason. Whenever you make it so that opponents can only cast spells anytime they cast a sorcery, if there's another combo deck at the table, then they can just combo off. If you've basically created a window for them, or at least they pretty much just have to beat you in counter spells if you cast a fairy, and if they have enough counter spells in hand, they probably can. So then lastly, the utility combo is Spellseeker into Ephemerate. When you cast Spellseeker, you grab Ephemerate, and then basically at the end of someone's turn, you can cast Ephemerate targeting your Spellseeker, and then that will grab you, another spell like Snap, which is one of the 4 cards used here. And then at the start of your turn during your upkeep, Ephemerate will be cast with Rebound from Exile. You can target the Spellseeker again to grab another spell. And so if you're wanting to put together like this 4 card combo or like something else, Spellseeker into Ephemerate can grab you a number of cards that you need. It can grab you Enlightened Tutor, which you can cast during your upkeep to grab like Underworld Breach. There's a number of things that Spellseeker into Ephemerate into grab two spells is can do for you. So that's pretty much the deck. Be sure to read the notes. And again, if you need a board wipe of any kind, just because uh, you're running out of um, uh, if you're getting beat down and you need a board wipe of some kind, then you have the option of Enlightened Tutor for Out of Time. You can also Mystical Tutor for Slaughter the Strong, or possibly Cyclonic Rift if need be. And if these if these are in your graveyard for whatever reason, you can also mutate Vadrok in order to cast them. You can't overload Cyclonic Rift on the mutate, and so that's another argument for why Slaughter the Strong and Out of Time are in the list, because sometimes you just need to wipe the board again and uh, be able to cast Vadrok for that purpose is pretty handy. Um, so yeah, that's the list, and in the next few videos in the playlist are just going to be games that showcase the deck in action. So be sure to watch those if you want to see more about how it plays.